In case I want to change up the play. I feel like right now we got our play going, we got our flow, but I want to change it up a little bit.
Which one?
We talked about early as Carlitos walks away. I want to talk about the early voting in Atlanta and how that just makes me feel warm in my heart. So, Carlitos, you want to talk a little bit about the early voting situation that you came across today?
Basically, I plan to go early voting today, and today's the first day of early voting in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. My mother-in-law went earlier than me, and she couldn't. It opened at 8. She was there about 8:05, and the line was around the building to the street, like around a big annex building, and all the way to the street on the first day. Wow. And she asked somebody how long they were there, and they said they were there since 6:30, and it opened at 8. Oh my okay, gosh. This is the first day, and she was there a little after 8. She had to go to work at 11. And she said, I won't be able to make it. This line is too long. You might think, it's you don't want the lines to be that long, but it's also a little heartwarming how seriously people are taking it, because when I usually go early, I always go early voting. I hate lines for everything. I don't like lines at all. So I always go early voting. And every time I go, there might be 2 people in front of me. If that. This time it was ridiculous. So I waited, I went around my lunchtime and I drove around just to see how the line was, and then if it was short, then I'll go vote. If not, whatever. Still, long as it was huge, and at the same time, I'm like, damn, it's long. But then I'm like, damn, the people are for real. They're not taking this for granted. And like we said in the previous podcast, man, it's really close for the Biden in the presidency, and also 2 Senate races. So it's super close right now, and people are taking it super seriously.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome. But again, like, we go back, should really take people 10 hours to vote in the United States. We sit there. I was reading, and people were sitting there like, 10, 8, 9 hours just to vote. So, and some people had to leave. Like you said, your mother-in-law probably left because she said she had to go to work. But how many of those people will come back? How many of those people will be like, oh, you know what? I tried too long, and I'm just not going to waste my time, Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But like we need to always talk about, that's basically voter suppression, man. Like there should be no way that it takes 10 hours to vote.
Right. And we know at least it's early voting, so there's still chance for people to vote. But we know how it is, especially in Republican-led states like Georgia, Florida, Kentucky. They're just crazy about the voter suppression. So it's horrible that there's long lines, but at least I'm heartened by the fact that even though it's not election day, people are treating it like it is, and they want to make sure they give themselves enough time in order to vote. And also, with that said, I want to give a shout out to my Atlanta Hawks for opening up their facility, because through them, they're able to put hundreds of voters per hour, 300 voter machines, about 5 minutes, 5 minutes per person. Wow. Oh, I think it's 200 voter machines, but about 5 minutes per person to get them all through from entering the door to voting and getting out. So the people is about the information. They're trying to do it social media, telling everybody, and I tell whoever I can. If you're in a county that has such a facility, you don't have to go to your county annex in order for early vote. You have to go to whatever your designated location on election day. But for early voting, you could go to designated location or one of these locations that are open for everybody in your county, such as the Atlanta Hawks State Farm Arena.
Nice. So you could go there every day, or how does it work?
Every day up to October 30th.
Oh, wow.
You could go early vote.
From Atlanta, Georgia, they had a lot of problems in one of the last elections when Stacey Abrams was running. It was for governor, and there was so much voter disenfranchisement that happened that without that, it seems like almost a given that she would have won. But because of those games that were played, she ended up losing. And I think, the voters learned from that. And they're like, you know what, if you're going to disenfranchise us, we're going to be out there early. We're going to be out there every day to make sure our vote counts. Now, I hope everyone else around the country takes it that seriously, because what we are seeing with the long lines in the beginning, it is heartwarming to see that people are out there, but it's also scary because if the lines are like that on election day, they'll start playing the games where they go, oh, well, if you're not in line by a certain time, if you're not this, they're going to be looking to cut that line off as soon as they can. to keep you from being able to get in and exercise your American right to vote. You know, they don't want a lot of people to vote. So vote early, vote in person if you can. We keep saying that on every episode. Vote in person if you can. Take every precaution, hand sanitizer, mask, N95 mask if you have one. If not, cloth mask. Just be extra careful and just try to go out there and get your vote counted, because with the type of president we have, with the shenanigans he's trying to pull with vote by mail and trying to discredit vote by mail, I personally, in this state, don't feel comfortable submitting my ballot by mail. And I've submitted my ballot by mail in several elections, but this time I'm going to go early and in person. My family's going to do the same. And we just want to make sure our vote is counted. And I hope you all do everything in your power to make sure your vote is counted. It's not a normal election year where you can go out and try to get your vote counted on the day of. It is a year where you really have to take every precaution to go early.
Let me ask you about that, though. You're in Florida. Even Trump voted by mail. What's your concern about voting by mail in Florida specifically?
But Trump used like a specific third party delivery. Like he just didn't do the regular
really
mail ballot.
I'm worried based off of the words of the president. You know, he said he's disconnected postal machines. He has a head of the post office that's going to do everything in his power to slow mail, and they've said that not only does mail have to be postmarked, but it also has to be received by election day, because anything postmarked by election day, they don't want to count that either. So there's so many hurdles where it might not be just Florida specifically, but I know that the administration, and if they're able to get the Supreme Court justice on, we've seen a Supreme Court steal an election before in 2000. So I just want to make sure that I don't give any opportunity for them to make my vote not count.
And you also make it easier for him to declare victory, right? I mean, if the more people that vote by mail, the more likely it is that he's going to say, "Yep, I clearly won by a landslide in this state. Stop counting the ballots."
So I'm just going to chip in here just real quick as somebody who does this work on the ground.
Yeah, please.
I think a lot of people are being fooled. I'm hearing what Gabe says, and I was recently on NPR last week in Jacksonville. Bunch of white people there. They're all really concerned about vote by mail. Why? Because the president is coming forth and is talking about vote by mail in a way that's alarming. And I think this was the play all along, right? To drag out COVID-19, to incite fear, and talk about vote by mail in a way that's not conducive to wanting to engage in that democratic process. A lot of people have pre-existing conditions. A lot of people have health issues, and going out to vote and risking their lives might not be the way for them. And I have differing opinions, right? So like, I know that, Florida has been voting by mail since 2002 and has since counted over 1 million votes. I also know that Florida throws away ballots at an alarming rate, specifically for Latino and Black communities. So the work that, organizations are doing on the ground, that I guess the party and the campaign is also doing on the ground, is to make sure that voters make a plan. I think that's the most important thing here. If you're going to be voting, and I hope you are voting this election, you need to be making a plan. So whether that is voting by mail, and making sure that if you live in a receive by state, that your ballot does get there on time, or if you're gonna, engage in the early voting process, that you are ready with your identification and your voter ID card if your state requires one, or if you're voting on election day, that you understand that there will be long lines and that you need to be prepared for any situation that might happen. So. Yeah, there's a really concerted effort from the right wing to not only delegitimize the election, but delegitimize the electoral process. And they understand that Americans have concerns about their own health, and coming out and risking their lives, if you don't have health insurance, might be catastrophic, right? We've seen the bills that come from COVID-19 cases, over $200,000 that people have to spend. So although, they're attempting to do this, what I urge you and everybody else here is to not discredit any type of voting. Like vote by mail might be something that's oftentimes being discussed right now. But if that's their only way to vote, we need to make sure that they have all the information that they need in order to get their vote counted, as Gabe said.
And they get it in early.
This is one of the concerns that I think, one of the concerns that I have is we know that early voting and mail-in ballot seem to favor the Democrats, right? I hope that people don't see that and be like, "Oh, we are so big. We have such a big lead." And then election day, they stay home, because we know the Republicans are coming out in big wave election day.
I don't think it's gonna happen this time, man. The people that I talk to, I mean, we still gotta keep saying it. We gotta keep saying it just for the few that still think that that might believe it. But everybody that I've been talking to, they're 100% that I'm gonna vote. I don't care what it takes. And hopefully, by so many people voting early, the people that vote on election day, the lines won't be as long. And a couple of things about my experience here. My county is mixed, but maybe 95% of the people I saw in line were people of color, and they all have masks. So that tells you the kind of electorate that's being pushed or believing that they need to take a stand now and do it early and getting there an hour and a half early if they have to, taking the day off on the first day of early voting, as the people that are being impacted the most from the coronavirus and from this president overall and Republicans, man, because those are the voters that they're trying to disenfranchise, but they're taking it seriously. Everybody that I know, people of color, everybody that's not a Trump supporter, people of color, there's a few of those still, unfortunately, but they're taking it seriously. They're voting early. They're wearing masks. They don't play around. Needless to say, the story that I said about the mask, it was a white guy. Sorry to say it, but the people that are believing that this thing is a hoax, are Republicans and white for the most part.
I'm so happy to have Joel on the panel because he could give his insight, and also what Izzy said. I mean, the most important thing is just vote. However you got to vote. If you're a sick person that you can't get to the ballot, you can't get outside and get to the actual polling station, so mail-in option is the only option, then do it. So whatever it takes to vote, do what is best for you. So a question though I want to bring up. I think that if anything that comes out of this COVID pandemic, if we can get national mail-in and normalize it, secure it, make sure that we are confident in that system, because by default it's a paper ballot system, which is my dream as an IT guy. I don't trust technology at all. My dream would be to have all paper ballot, and mail-in ballots by default is paper ballots.
But you know enough to know better.
Yeah, exactly. So, Joel, do you think that all 50 states can take up and have a robust mail-in system?
It's tough to say whether or not they'll be able to implement something that is applicable across the field. As we see, like Florida has been voting by mail since 2002, but Black and Latinos are having their ballots thrown away at rates that we don't see with white constituencies. If national vote by mail mandates or an institution where vote by mail is the standard for voting, there needs to be somebody taking a look at it to make sure that there isn't racist laws behind that. So in Florida, there's signature matching laws, which is what throws away your ballot, right? So it's like you're a registered voter, and as long as your address is up to date, if you're mailing your ballot back, they should know and have full confidence that you, as the voter registered in that address, is the person that is voting. And I think the talking point is that there's rampant mail fraud, but since we've been tracking election data, there's only been 0.0006% of fraud, which is negligible, right? There's very little instance of voter fraud. So like in order for something like that to come in place, we need to make sure that we get rid of what is actually racist signature matching laws, things that prevent Black and Latinos from voting by mail, and doing so in a way that their vote gets counted. But I do, in an ideal world, foresee voting by mail being the standard, because people get time to do the research at their home. They get to look up the candidates, and they get to vote at their convenience.
Exactly. That along with ranked choice, that's my main dream for election change. And I think it would be cool if you could send your mail-in ballot back, and of course do it early. Let's say you can get your ballot a month before election day, and then you send your mail-in ballot, and then you can get an email, or you could go to the website and check, and it'll say confirmed, like we have received it officially and it has been accepted, or and if there's any problem, you can look and it said not confirmed. Then okay, I got to go to my board of elections and find out what happened so they could give me another one. That would be a cool reform. So anybody else have anything else to say on this topic?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about the verification. I believe this happens, but I'm sure that Colorado already has, substantial mail-in voting system. I think Washington State also. So to me, definitely it could happen. Definitely it should happen. But what the Joel brought is a separate issue about the the racism and the way they're trying to disenfranchise some voters. I'm in Georgia, so I know a lot about this. Man.
But you always look at those, go back to, right? Those states, like Florida and Georgia and Texas, they always leading the way, right? So those Republican state, like the whole signature matching thing is the stupidest thing ever. Like my signature has changed like 3 times in my lifetime.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
The way when I registered to vote when I was 18, 19 years old, the signature that I have in my license or the signature that I have now is 2 completely different things. And for them to use that, but we know that is one form of voting suppression, and they just want to use. We know that is not in their advantage, in the Republicans' advantage, to make it easier for people to vote.
I think one more quick thing that we talked about: go to the ballot box if you can. Also, beware of ballot boxes, especially drop-off ballot boxes, because there's a lot of articles coming out now with people putting out fake ballot boxes to wrangle up the vote, and then they basically are, I guess, their advantage is just throw them away or whatever. So. Just be very wary that if you do have a ballot box state, that you are only dropping your ballot in a legitimate box. Be very careful with that.
Yeah, there's also a story about a pastor in California that put a fake box out.
Okay, so in the comments below, let us know your situation in your state. How do you plan to vote? Are you going to plan to vote by mail-in ballot, or are you going to go to the poll? Let us know, and hopefully you do early voting. Like and subscribe.